Chapter 64. The nerves tingled in my toes as Mr. Yao's Lincoln Navigator pulled into the motel. We told him on the phone we had something very important to discuss with him. "So, what's this all about?" he asked, plopping himself down on the couch. Nervously, my mom looked at my dad. I glanced toward my room, where the trash bag of cash was, and out of the small kitchen window where Hank's, Billy Bob's, and Mrs. Q's heads were squeezed together trying to peer in. They all knew this was a big moment. We'd like to discuss buying the motel, my mom said. Mr. Yao sat up. "Why? Did an interested buyer come?" he asked. My dad cleared his voice. "Yes," he said. "Well, who is it?" Mr. Yao asked. "Us," my dad said. "You?" Mr. Yao said. He started laughing. "How much did you come up with? $500? He chuckled. "Actually, we came up with $300,000, my dad said. Mr. Yao stopped laughing. A war was happening in Mr. Yao's face as denial morphed into rage. "How the heck did you get $300,000? Mr. Yao finally said. "That's not important," my dad said. "What's important is, do we have a deal or not?" Again, Mr. Yao burst out laughing. "Do we have a deal or not? Who do you think you are?" I jumped in. "He's a guy who's about to buy your motel. That's who he is," I told him. "Oh, no, he's not," Mr. Yao snapped. "There's another buyer interested, and he's offering more." "How much more?" Mr. Yao shrugged. "How much?" my dad repeated. "What's the difference? You can't afford it." "How much?" 50,000. We called up every single investor, but unfortunately nobody had any extra money. They had already given us every dollar they had. Even Mr. Cooper said his hands were tied. He added that if the deal did not go through by the end of the month, he would need his $50,000 back so he could put it into one of his other investments. I dropped my head into my hands. Everything was slipping away, all my hard work. It felt like losing the essay contest all over again, except it hurt so much more because this time I was letting everyone down. I hugged the humongous trash bag of money and cried. I cried for all the motel essay contest applicants who once again failed to get a motel. I cried for young Hank getting pushed around by all those mean kids, and old Hank, 40 years later, still getting treated unfairly. And for Lupe's dad, boiling away on the roof every single day under the blistering sun. I cried for Mr. Abayan, the convenience store guy from the Philippines, and Mr. Bagawati, the laundry guy, with his raisiny fingers and hunchback washing bundle after bundle of clothes. I cried for Uncle Zhang, poor Uncle Zhang, who had no money but still insisted on contributing because it was so important to him to help us in our hour of need. And all the other uncles and aunts who sent us money, hoping for a slice, however tiny, of the American dream. And now it was all going to fall apart over $50,000. $50,000 we couldn't come up with, even if you opened us up and sold us for parts. Slowly, I stood. I dried my tears, picked up the bag of money, and walked into the living room. "Hey, where are you going with that?" my parents asked me. "I'm going to call the investors, start returning all of this money," I told my parents. They shook their heads. "We have an idea," they said.